Welcome to Unexplained Possibilities Top 10 Cursed Objects. I'm Melvin the Crimson Taurus, and let's get into it. The Goddess of Death is a statue discovered in 1878 in Lim, Cyprus. It has been dated to 3500 BC and is believed to represent a goddess of time by noted historians. The first owner of the goddess was Lord Elfont. History doesn't exactly explain the way in which all 7 members of the Elfont met their demise, only that 7 passed away within 6 years of becoming the proud owners of the Goddess of Death. Newport, Rhode Island is one of the oldest towns in the United States. It's also home to Belcourt Castle. Belcourt Castle was founded by Oliver Hazard Perry Belmont, a wealthy American socialite and politician in 1894. There are many different documented hauntings within this home, but perhaps the most famous haunted objects in the castle are 2 chairs that reportedly have spirits attached to them. Visitors who sit in the chair say they immediately feel cold, queasy, and uncomfortable. Their hands feel like they're pricked by static electricity when held near the chairs, and many people have claimed that they felt like they're sitting on someone when they attempt to sit in the chairs. Several visitors have actually been ejected from the chairs by an unseen force. So, are these chairs actually haunted? Or is it imaginations gone wild? In 1849, a girl from a rich family named Anna Baker fell in love with a low-class iron worker. Anna's father, Ellis Baker, refused to let her marry her beloved, banishing the young man from their hometown of Altona, Pennsylvania, and dooming his daughter to a life of spinsterhood. Anna was so angry with her father that she never fell in love or married, and remained bitter and angry until her death in 1914. Before her father sent her true love away, Anna had chosen a beautiful wedding dress that she intended to wear at their wedding. When the wedding did not occur, another wealthy woman from a local family, Elizabeth Dysart, wore the dress instead, gloating the entire time. Years later, the wedding dress was given to a historical society, and eventually the Baker Mansion was turned into a museum. The wedding dress was placed in a glass case in what was formerly Anna Baker's bedroom. After her death, visitors claimed to see the dress move on its own, especially during full moons. The dress sways from side to side as if an unseen bride is standing in front of her mirror, admiring herself in the gap. Investigators who search for drafts and other naturally occurring circumstances have come up empty-handed. No one can be sure why the dress sometimes moves by itself, though many speculate that the spurned bride, Anna Baker, has reclaimed her dress at last. Myrtle's Plantation is an allegedly haunted bed and breakfast that is largely considered to be the most haunted home in the United States, as well as one of the most haunted houses in the world. The plantation dates back to 1796, and it was built on a Native American burial ground. Additionally, it is rumored to be the location of at least 10 murders, and paranormal events are almost a daily occurrence. Perhaps the most haunted item on Myrtle Plantation is a mirror that was added to the home in 1980. Guests of the plantation have reported seeing figures lurking in the mirror, as well as child-sized handprints on the glass. Legend claims that the mirror contains the spirits of Sarah Woodruff and her children. The Woodruffs were poisoned to death, and though custom dictates the mirror should be covered after death to prevent spirits from getting trapped, this mirror was not covered. So the belief is the Woodruff souls are very much present and active within the mirror. But how did they get there? To find that out, we'd have to talk about Chloe, A former Pennsylvania lawyer, Whiskey Dave Bradford, built the Myrtles home in 1796. The property was eventually passed on to his daughter Sarah and her husband Judge Clark Woodruff in the 1820s. The Woodruffs had 3 children, Cornelia, Jane, and Mary. They owned slaves, and one of these slaves was a pretty young woman by the name of Chloe. Chloe is said to have been promoted to a house slave and act as governess for the Woodruff's children. Chloe supposedly was so grateful for her new position that when the judge, who was a womanizer, approached her for sexual favors, she went along in order to keep her new position. Being the judge's mistress, Chloe now felt her new status was safe and she would be able to remain in the house. But Judge Woodruff had a wandering eye, and it wasn't long before he became bored with Chloe. When the judge rejected Chloe, she became obsessed with the fact that she might be sent back to the fields. Becoming increasingly paranoid, she began to eavesdrop on the judge's private conversations. But the judge caught her listening one day and ordered that one of her ears be chopped off as punishment. For the rest of her short life, Chloe wore a green turban wrapped around her head so no one would ever see her wound. Now afraid she would be doomed to hard labor for the rest of her life, she began to plot how she could become indispensable to the Woodruffs so she could remain a house slave. She came up with a plan to give the family a small amount of poison to make them ill. Then she would prove her worth by nursing them all back to health. Making a cake for Cornelia's upcoming birthday, Chloe crushed oleander leaves, boiled them, and put this water into the cake. Unfortunately, she used too much, and the result was Sarah and 2 of her children, Cornelia and Jane, died. The judge and baby Mary did not eat the cake, so they survived. Chloe told another slave what she had done, and soon the word spread. The rest of the slaves were worried they would be implicated in these deaths and took matters into their own hands in order to gain favor with the judge. They lynched Chloe and weighted her body with rocks and threw it into a nearby river. It wasn't long before witnesses claimed they saw Chloe's ghost roaming the plantation grounds. It was considered to be her, for this figure wore a green turban. A story then circulated her ghost also haunted a mirror that hung in the dining room where the family members died. In recent years, other witnesses have come forward to state that Chloe's victims, Sarah Woodruff and her 2 children, also haunt this mirror. The reason given as to why this mirror is haunted is based on an old superstition connected to death and mirrors. It's said the judge sealed off this dining room shortly after the deaths. No one was allowed in the room for years. Because of this, the mirror was left uncovered during the mourning period for his family and when Chloe was hanged, which allowed their spirits to become trapped in the mirror's reflection. There's only one problem with that story. Remember how I said in the beginning, the mirror wasn't added until 1980. If the story's to be believed, that would mean that that mirror had been there since the 1800s. That just can't be true at all. However, guests swear that they've seen a woman wearing a green turban and Sarah Woodruff and her 2 children. In Thirsk, England, located near Sandhutton in North Yorkshire, the Busby Stoop Inn is a public house with a tavern that is considered haunted. The activity seems confined to a reputed chair of death kept in storage. The so-called chair of death was a favorite chair of a man named Thomas Busby, who was convicted in 1702 for the murder of his father-in-law, Daniel Uddy, whom he supposedly strangled for sitting in his favorite chair after an argument about Thomas's wife, Audie's daughter, Elizabeth. On his way to the gallows in 1702, he asked to stop by the pub and put a curse on his chair, claiming that anyone who sat in it would be haunted and soon die. It remained in the pub for centuries, and people were dared to sit in it. During World War II, airmen from a nearby air base made the pub a hot spot, and the chair became a hot seat, and people noticed that the ones who sat in it would never come back from the war. In 1967, 2 Royal Air Force pilots sat in it, and while driving back, they crashed into a tree and died. A few years later, 2 bricklayers decided to try it, and that afternoon, the one who sat in it fell to his death. The cursed chair has apparently killed every person who sat in it, no matter what. Some instances include a roofer who sat in it died after the roof he was working on collapsed, and a cleaning woman stumbled into it while mopping and was later killed by a brain tumor. Eventually, the pub owner moved it into the basement, hoping that nobody would sit in it. However, one day a delivery man was in the basement and sat in it. An hour later, he crashed his truck and died. After that death, the landlord asked the local museum to take it to ensure nobody sat in it again. They hung the chair 5 feet from the ground. It seemed that because the museum had made it nearly impossible to be able to sit in it, its killing days were over. The museum is still open and functioning with the chair in its place as of December 2014. It is said that sometime prior to death, time varies in all cases, the person who sat in the chair is plagued with haunting experiences, including extreme itching, paranoia, hearing things, confusion, items being moved, and written warnings on the mirrors and walls about the person's imminent death, in addition to many other strange happenings. So, if you ever find yourself in a bar or a pub, and you hear a local story about someone passing away, and they point out their favorite seat to you, don't sit in it. In the year 2000, an anonymous eBay seller listed a painting created by artist Bill Stoneham called The Hands Resist Him. This painting is now largely considered to be one of the world's most haunted works of art. The painting features a boy and a creepy doll standing in front of a glass door. The painting was created in 1972 and purchased by Hollywood actor John Martin. It was then bought by a California couple before going up for sale on eBay, along with the dire warning about the problems involved with owning the object. According to the couple, the figures in the painting moved around at night, sometimes disappearing from the canvas entirely. The boy in the painting was said to actually enter the room where the painting hung, and everyone who viewed the painting reported feeling sick and weak. Small children would take one look at the painting and run from the room screaming. Adults sometimes felt like unseen hands were grabbing them, and others said that they felt a blast of hot air, as if they had opened an oven. Even those who viewed the painting online claimed to feel a sense of unease, dread, or terror when looking at the painting. One person even claimed that their brand new printer refused to print the photo of the painting. However, it worked fine on every other print shop. The painting was purchased by an art gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan. When the gallery spoke to the artist who had created it, he was surprised to hear that his work was at the center of a paranormal investigation. But he did mention that 2 people who originally displayed and reviewed the painting had died within a year of viewing his creepy and, dare I say, deadly art. Another creepy piece of artwork, known as the Anguish Man, was kept in Sean Robinson's grandmother's attic for nearly 25 years before he inherited it from her. She had always told Robinson that the painting was evil, explaining how the artist who created it had used his own blood mixed with the paint and had killed himself shortly after completing it. She claimed to hear voices and crying when the painting was displayed, and to see the shadowy figure of a man in her house, which is why she locked it away in the attic. As soon as Robinson took the painting into his home, he and his family started experiencing the same kinds of creepy phenomena. His son fell down the stairs, his wife felt something stroking her hair, and they saw the shadow man and heard crying. Robinson decided to set up a camera overnight to try and capture some of the strange events on tape. Robinson's YouTube video shows slamming doors, rising smoke, and a painting falling from a wall for no reason. Frightened, Robinson soon put the painting down in his basement. Now, if you're interested in buying this creepy work of art, don't even think about it. Robinson says he's not interested in selling it. In 1906, a house servant at 524 Eaton Street in Key West, Florida, gave the young son of the mansion's owners a doll that was named Robert after the boy. Eugene Otto is how the boy, who would later become a well-known artist, is addressed. But the doll took his first name and became known as Robert the Doll. According to stories, there was something evil about the doll from the beginning. The fault is placed on the woman who gave the doll to Otto. She supposedly cursed it or invited an evil spirit to possess the doll using voodoo. As evil dolls all want to do, Robert began speaking to his little owner, who spent all of his time with the doll. The Ottos would hear their boy talking to Robert and hear a different voice respond, but they initially thought their son was talking to himself using a different voice. When the lad would get into trouble, he would blame it on Robert. Neighbors and people who walked by the Otto house in Key West would notice Robert the doll moving from window to window in the home. Some even say he ran through rooms giggling in such a way as to frighten those who heard it when his owners were not home. It is uncertain why the doll was not thrown away. Eugene Otto kept Robert the doll in his house indefinitely. Even his wife made renters of the home keep Robert in a special room after Eugene passed away. Eventually, the house passed to new owners who found Robert in the attic. They had a young daughter who became terrified of the doll, claiming that it wanted and even tried to kill her. To this day, she repeats that story. In 1994, Robert the doll finally left the Victorian mansion on Eaton Street and made his home at the museum, where visitors and some museum workers claim he moves and curses those who take his pictures without permission and nods to give his assent to those who act nicely. Annabelle, a Raggedy Ann doll, was purchased from an antique shop in 1970. A mother bought the doll for her college-aged daughter. Donna, the college student, liked the doll and placed it on the bed in her apartment, not giving the yarn hair toy a second thought. Shortly after the doll entered her apartment, Donna and her roommate Angie noticed the doll seemed to be moving on its own and was generally creeping them out. The girls began finding notes written on parchment paper scattered about the apartment. They didn't own parchment paper, and once found the Raggedy Ann doll standing on its two flimsy legs, leaning against the chair in the living room. They first contacted a medium who conducted a seance and discovered that the young girl named Annabelle had died many years ago on the property where the girl's apartment now stood. The spirit told the medium she felt comfortable with the girls and wanted to stay with them and be loved. So, they gave the girl permission to inhabit the doll and stay. The activity surrounding the doll continued to increase and became more violent until finally, a friend named Lou was attacked one evening, receiving 7 scratches across his chest. After their friend was physically scratched, the girls decided they may not be dealing with the spirit of a young girl, and so sought help from Ed and Lorraine Warren. After an investigation, the Warrens determined the doll was not inhabited by a young girl spirit, but something non-human had attached itself to the toy. Demons often lie about their identity in the hopes of getting closer to weak humans, so they can literally possess a person. And something very evil was, and maybe still is, attached to Annabelle the doll. Annabelle is now kept in a locked glass case that can be seen at the Warrens Occult Museum in Connecticut. A large sign hanging on Annabelle's case reads, "Warning, positively do not open." A Dibbuk Box is a wine cabinet which, according to Jewish folklore, is said to be haunted by a restless evil spirit that is capable of haunting and possessing the living. One particular Dibbuk Box became famous when it was listed on eBay along with a terrifying backstory. The story began in 2001 when an antique buyer and refinisher attended an estate sale in Portland, Oregon. The auction was held to sell off the belongings of a 103-year-old woman, and her granddaughter informed the antique dealer of the woman's past when she noticed that he had purchased a simple wooden wine cabinet. The old woman had been Jewish, the only one of her family members to survive her time in a Nazi concentration camp during World War II. When she immigrated to the U.S., the wine cabinet and 2 other items were the only things she brought with her. The woman's granddaughter explained that her grandmother had always kept the box hidden away and said that it should never ever be opened because it contained a malicious spirit called a Dibbuk. She requested that the box be buried with her, but since doing so went against Jewish tradition, her family did not oblige. When the antique dealer asked the granddaughter if she would like to keep the box for sentimental reasons, the woman vehemently refused, becoming very upset and saying, "We made a deal, you have to take it." The dealer took his purchase back to his shop and placed it in his workshop in the basement. Immediately, strange and frightening things started to happen. He was called by his frantic shop assistant who said that the lights had gone out, the doors and security gates had locked, and she heard terrible sounds coming from the basement. When he investigated, he discovered a terrible odor of cat urine lingering in the air, and every light bulb in the place had been smashed. The dealer gave the wine box to his mother as a gift, and the woman immediately suffered a major stroke. In the hospital, she spelled out HATEGIFT, hate gift, as tears spilled from her eyes uncontrollably. He attempted to give the gift to several more people, but it was always returned to him within a few days, usually because people just didn't like it, or because they felt something about it was evil. He began suffering from a recurring nightmare, and he later found that all of his family members who had been around the box were having the same dream. He started seeing shadow figures darting around in his peripheral vision as well. After finally admitting that there was something paranormal happening, he went online to research and fell asleep at his computer. When he woke up, he felt like something was breathing on his neck. And when he turned his head, he saw a huge shadow figure dashing away from him down the hall. He then decided to list the item on eBay along with a detailed account of what had happened to him since obtaining the box. Jason Haxton, the curator of a medical museum in Missouri, purchased the box from the eBay auction. He later wrote a book detailing the strange story of the Dibbuk Box. And in 2012, a horror movie based on the book entitled The Possession was released. Thank you for listening to Unexplained Possibilities Top 10 Countdown, and if you have a suggestion for another countdown, feel free to leave a comment down below or leave a comment on our Facebook page, which you can find at www.facebook.com/unexplainedpossibilities. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you guys have a great day.